Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to film mini book reviews of 4 classics I have recently read. You guys know the drill. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's just jump right in. So the first classic which I read was Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now this was a reread for me. I have made a video of the classics which I want to reread, and Animal Farm was one of them. I read this book with my younger brother this time, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. It has been 8 years since I last read this book, and this book is so relevant no matter when you read it. My younger brother, who is 5-6 years younger than me, enjoyed it as much as I did, and our favorite quote has to be, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others." I've also read 1984 by George Orwell, but I have to say Animal Farm is the better one. I have given 1984 4-star rating and Animal Farm 5-star rating. So if you're interested in a short, quick classic, Animal Farm is the way to go. So the next classic which I read was a part of a read-along which was hosted by Steve Donahue, and it was for Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope. Now this was a massive book. It was almost 850 pages long, and it took us a month to finish this book. I loved it. I gave it 4-star rating on Goodreads. Out of all the Anthony Trollope books, The Way We Live Now is definitely a favorite, but Can You Forgive Her was also very interesting, and it is book 1 of the Palliser series. And the best part was watching Steve's videos, because he summed up all the chapters we read in 1 week. So that definitely picked up my interest more and more in the book, because there were certain points which I missed, which he brought to attention with his videos, and I definitely went more in depth because of his videos. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope he does read along of all the coming books of the series, because now I really want to read the other books. I do not have them all with me at the moment. I just have one, which is The Eustace Diamonds, which is I think book 3 in the Palliser series. Basically the story revolves around Alice, who has to decide whether she wants to marry her cousin George, who is very ambitious and into politics, or a gentleman, John Grey. And she finds that she accepts them and then rejects them in turn. She is unsure, but in the end she does pick one of the two. Let me just share one of my favorite quotes from Can You Forgive Her? "There are men who rarely think well of women, who hardly think well of any woman. They put their mothers and sisters into the background, as though they belonged to some sex or race apart, and then declare to themselves and to their friends that all women are false, that no woman can be trusted unless her ugliness protects her, and that every woman may be attacked as fairly as May game in a cover or deer on a mountain. What man does not know men who have so thought?" There was another point of interest for me, which was, what woman can bear a blow from a man and afterwards return to him with love? A wife may have to bear it and to return, and she may return with that sort of love which is a thing of custom. The man is the father of her children and earns the bread which they eat and which she eats. Habit and the ways of world require that she should be careful in his interests, and that she should live with him in what amity is possible to them. But as for love, all that we mean by love when we speak of it and write of it, a blow given by the defender to the defenseless crushes it all. A woman may forgive deceit, treachery, desertion, even the preference given to a rival. She may forgive them and forget them, but I do not think that a woman can forget a blow. And as for forgiveness, it is not the blow that she cannot forgive, but the meanness of spirit that made it possible. I just see this so much around me that I can relate to this paragraph so much. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I'm really looking forward to reading other books in the series. My favorite character from the book has to be Mr. Palliser. He was just an amazing character, and so unpredictable, and such a gentleman, such a gentleman. The third book which I read was, and is now one of my favorite books, it was Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. I loved this book. I gave it 5-star rating. I had a fair idea of the plot line, but I had no idea regarding the twists and turns in the second half of the novel. It was dramatic without being over dramatic. I loved the character of Gabriel Oak. He was such a sweet guy, and I felt sorry for Troy and Boldwood as well. I loved the prose. The whole setup was beautifully put together by Hardy. Every sentence was a treat to read. It did not get boring for a second. I loved the independent Bathsheba. She takes care of a farm alone in the 18th century. Kudos to her. I can understand why this book is so hyped up, and I'm glad to have read this book because now I can join in on the hype. The 2015 movie adaptation was amazing as well and pretty much on point. Far from the Madding Crowd is now right next to The Return of the Native, or maybe even a little bit higher than The Return of the Native, which was one of my favorite Hardys so far. Books by Thomas Hardy which I have read so far are Far from the Madding Crowd, The Return of the Native, Under the Greenwood Tree, Desperate Remedies, and The Mayor of Casterbridge. So I have read 5 books by Thomas Hardy, and Far from the Madding Crowd is my top favorite at the moment. It was just stunning to read. It had beautiful prose, and it just was delicious. The last book which I want to talk about is The American by Henry James. I've talked about this book a little bit when I did my Let's Talk About Henry James video, but I read this book a while back, and I have given this 4-star rating. There's a clash between the American and the Europeans in this book. There's a guy called Christopher Newman who comes to Europe and he falls in love with this girl, but then the girl has a very aristocratic family. But after that, the story gets complicated, deep and dark, because there is some mystery and some thrilling aspect to the plot. So if you're into that kind of books, if you like thrillers and mysteries, then this has definitely that element in it. And yeah, it was just a great story to read about and a light read. It had simple sentences, nothing too heavy, not like The Portrait of a Lady, but definitely a very good book. So those were the 4 classics which I read in the past couple of months. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm going to see you all in my next video very soon. Bye.